Okay, Deadpool and Wolverine. I want to start off with saying I haven't been this excited for a Marvel movie in a long time. I've been really looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine, and a lot of that is down to the trailers. I did do a trailer reaction of the very first trailer, I believe it was, and you've got Madonna's Like a Prayer playing on top. It did a really good job at sort of tapping into the kind of the nostalgic element of these characters. It looked fun, it looked crazy, and it just got me really, really excited. And what I was hoping for, which is something the trailer kind of hints at, was taking what I really liked about Logan, which is that emotional aspect of the story, along with Deadpool's humour and that kind of surprising heart that Deadpool has with those previous two movies, and combine the both to give us what is a crazy, wild, fun, hysterical blast, but an experience that almost rides on this big beating heart that can get us, the viewers, emotionally wrapped up with these characters' journeys. And that's what the trailer hinted at for me, and that's what I was hoping for. A combination of the both that would work, hopefully really, really well together, and give us something that not only it's fun, it's crazy, and that we can laugh every minute at, but something that has an emotional weight to it, emotional depth, due to what's going on with these characters. It's why Logan worked for me, and it's why the previous two Deadpools have worked for me, because of our heart at the core of the story. I enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot. I had so much fun. There are times where I really laughed out loud, but there's also moments with the humour that kind of just didn't work or just fell flat. At times, it felt like MCU humour with a dash of edginess, but then there were times where you had the classic Ryan Reynolds Deadpool humour that we all know and love. And it was sort of a combination of the both, which kind of really sums this movie up, really, with what they are trying to do with this story in terms of looking back at sort of the past with the old 20th Century Fox superhero movies. But yeah, when it comes to the humour, it was a blend that worked in moments, and when it does work, it really did make me chuckle. But then there are also moments where it kind of just fell a little bit flat. And that's how this entire experience felt for me. It is a combination of two studios, 20th Century Fox, which is the past, and now you've got Marvel, which is the now. And what they are trying to achieve for this movie, for this story, is for it to be this big love letter to superhero movies that we all grew up with loving during the 90s into the early 2000s, and they really do hone in on the nostalgic element of the story, which I really did enjoy. There are some really nice surprises, especially with our first major cameo within the movie. I thought the way in which they did it was very, very clever, and I absolutely loved it. But the entire film still retains that MCU DNA. What I mean by that is that kind of MCU formula, which I felt was more evident within the story, is very much there. And I feel like, for me personally, it's the story which was one of the weakest aspects of this experience. And look, this movie was, I'm going to say this word quite a lot because it just was, you know, this film was an awful lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. I was locked in for 2 hours, and this is definitely the type of movie that the MCU really needed right now. It's almost like that spark where it's just reignited the MCU. But ultimately, by the end of it, that's all it does end up feeling like, is that kind of spark where it sparks up the engine is roaring again, and then that's about it. And a lot of that is just down to how these moments of craziness and fun really kind of just sort of fit into the overall narrative. They all just ended up feeling like these big moments of fun, craziness, in between sort of kind of the very thin connection of the story and its characters' journeys. It's like the engine gets reignited and it's roaring for a moment, but then it kind of just dies out again, and then it's like you've got to sort of try to reignite the engine to roar again, and that's the only way I can kind of really sum up this experience. Because you have got 2 hours of a hell of a lot of fun here. But it's these characters' journeys and that kind of the emotional weight, that emotional anchor behind these characters' journeys, which is there, just ends up getting lost among all the noise, and it ends up almost feeling in many ways that when they were writing this story, they weren't quite sure of what it was they wanted to do or how they wanted to tell the story. And that at times is how it felt. And it's how these characters' journeys, their stories, so Wolverine's and Deadpool's, it's how their stories, and with that emotional aspect to them, is kind of fed into all of this noise. And it just ended up getting lost for me. So even though it was this very fun ride full of energy that I had a hell of a good time with, I just couldn't help but feel at the end like, oh, and that's it. It kind of, for me personally, lacked that weight and heart that I was really hoping for with this movie, that the previous two Deadpools had, and that Logan, for example, and even Wolverine, do you know what I mean? They've all had it, and there was just something for me missing when it comes to the depth of these characters, and sort of giving, you know, sort of as a reason to really get behind these characters, other than it just being nostalgia, you know, and the fact that, you know, I grew up with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I will always have that emotional attachment to the character and to Hugh Jackman as a result of, you know, playing this character. I remember watching him in that very first X-Men movie for the first time, and so the film does a good job of tapping into the nostalgia. I just feel like the story, everything kind of just felt half-baked when it came to the story and what it was they were trying to do. But look, putting the story aspect aside, I still couldn't help but have so much fun with this movie. Like I said, I was locked in for the 2 hours. It did exactly what a movie should do. I was immersed. They had these big, crazy moments full of blood and gore, and it was a blast. You know, you got, in regards to the humour, they're constantly breaking the fourth wall, which I loved, and I thought was done in a very smart way. You got some really cool, creative fight scenes. There's this one fight scene with a horde of villains. I'm not going to say too much because this is a spoiler-free review, and you've got Madonna's Like a Prayer playing on in the background, and that scene alone really summed up how I felt about this movie. It does a good job at kind of really tapping into the nostalgic element of these characters and those superhero movies that I grew up with, and it somewhat does that well. It's not quite the love letter that I felt like they wanted this to be, but at the same time, it made me smile. Like, it gave me warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feelings, and I, like I said, just couldn't help but enjoy myself. I do feel like there's an overuse of CGI, especially when it comes to the blood. At times it just gets just a little bit too cartoon-like, and it kind of felt in a way that perhaps they were aiming for that kind of direction or style when it came to the CGI violence, to sort of retain that 15 rating maybe, because this film was quite violent in moments. But even though I really enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine, I couldn't help by the end of it sort of just feel like I'd just experienced a 2-hour journey of a scrapbook of ideas that were thinly connected by its very weak story that just got lost among all the noise, especially when it came to the characters' journeys. And that's how it ultimately felt for me. A scrapbook full of kind of really crazy, wild ideas of what they can do in terms of playing with nostalgia and bringing certain characters back, and sort of really kind of tapping into the nostalgic element and just having a blast, just having a hell of a lot of fun. But it's almost like they forget that kind of beating heart behind these characters and their motivations, and that really did suffer along with the story. In many ways, the entire experience did feel like Marvel were trying perhaps a little bit too hard to win that audience back. I think that's how the overall experience, again, sort of kind of felt at the same time. So yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine for me was a very fun experience, but with flaws, with issues with its pacing. It did do some clever things with its cameos and humour, and the action set pieces are a hell of a lot of fun. But it didn't blow my socks off. Was it a love letter and send-off to the past superhero movies that we grew up with that it wanted to be? No, not quite. and this is because of how everything was pieced together. It's almost like they weren't quite sure what story or how to tell the story, and it ends up feeling like a mishmash of fun, cool ideas where at times, yeah, I really did geek out. And by the end of this movie, looking back at it, I do kind of wonder to myself, were they trying a little bit too hard, or did they play it perhaps a little bit too safe? I don't know. All I do know is I had a hell of a lot of fun with this film. It was a good time. It is a very flawed experience, and it wasn't quite one that I was hoping for, especially with the trailers. I felt like what they were hinting at with the trailer was kind of the same for the movie itself. They were kind of hinting at that kind of the beating heart at the core of its story, but like I said, it kind of just gets lost under all the noise, which is fine in a way, because I was immersed and I was enjoying myself for the 2 hours. But there was somewhat of an emptiness to it and a weightlessness to the overall story as well. Before I rate this movie, like I've already rated this film, but if I was to rate this movie purely based on sort of how this movie was crafted from a technical perspective, to the writing, to the story, then this would definitely be a slightly lower grade to what I'm about to give it. The reason why I'm giving it this grade is because I had so much fun with this movie, and I keep saying, you know, I enjoyed it. It was a blast. So yeah, enough rambling on from me. I'm going to be giving Deadpool and Wolverine a 7 out of 10. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. I feel like they have truly reignited that engine within the MCU. They just need to keep that momentum and energy going now with future installments. So fingers crossed. But yeah, what did you guys think? I do believe there's going to be an awful lot of you that have loved this movie more than I have, and maybe there's going to be a few of you that really disliked it a hell of a lot more than I did. Please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and if you want to watch future movie reviews from a random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for I Saw the TV Glow, which was also released the same weekend, so I'm hoping to catch it this week, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out, because I've heard a lot of positive things about I Saw the TV Glow. And so yeah, that'll be my next main movie review. And I'm also going to have a review up, a TV review up for The Boys Season 4. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for everyone that have subscribed recently. It means an awful lot. I keep saying this, but I'm still amazed by how many of you want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV, but it does mean an awful lot, and I absolutely enjoy doing this. So yeah, I really do appreciate it. Thanks again, and I'll be catching you guys soon.